All of us want nice looking teeth. Many of us are satisfied with the way our teeth look naturally, but some of us desire alterations that give a more aesthetically pleasing look. And getting veneers is one of the many alterations. And that is the topic of today's discussion. Okay, so what are veneers? Well, veneers are thin coverings placed over the teeth. Now, why would you want veneers? Well, maybe your teeth are a little too stained for your liking. Maybe they're a little chipped. They might be a little crooked or have some sort of damage. There are many reasons why someone would get veneers. As we'll talk later, the extent of damage, whether it's chipped or maybe crooked, veneers can't fix some of this stuff if it's very bad, but if it's not too bad, it can save the day. The main types of veneers are porcelain and composite resin. We'll talk in the next slide about what those are specifically. The reason why someone would get one of these or the other options, which there are many, depends on the patient and the clinic. As you'll see throughout this video, there are so many variations and variables when it comes to veneers. One of the big variables is cost. Veneers come in a wide range of prices, some very cheap and some very expensive. Another big difference is placement time. Some people can get their veneers in a day. For some, it might take a few weeks. And these are just a few of many different things involved in choosing veneers. One other thing I wanted to mention is that there are veneers that are like technically no prep veneers, and these are reversible and they are also removable. It just really depends on the situation. Lumineers is an option, and we're not going to talk in depth about these. I just want to make this point. These require a lot less prep. They are semi-permanent. They are pretty pricey. And they're not ideal if you like grind your teeth and other things like that. I wanted to mention this because this is one of the many types of veneers. And if you're willing to pay the price, these veneers require a lot less prep work, and for some people, they might be a better option. But let's continue. So I want to make a quick distinction between crowns and veneers. These are two very different things. So crowns cover the whole tooth, and they're really necessary for damage, any intense trauma that the tooth has gone through, and structural issues. Crowns are very different from veneers, and that crowns are pretty medically necessary depending on the situation. Veneers are purely cosmetic. By the way, I'm not a dentist, obviously, so if anyone in dentistry, dentist, dental hygienist, or anyone has veneers, please comment and give thoughts and things like that, because I'd love to learn a little bit more about these. But let's continue. And they cover the front of the teeth. So I just want to make a quick distinction between these two things in case there might have been a little confusion. So let's continue. So let's talk about the differences between dental porcelain and composite resin, or porcelain veneers versus composite resin veneers. So porcelain, well, dental porcelain is made up of what's called feldspar, and this is used in glass, tile, and ceramics. And you might be thinking, well, those things are pretty strong and sturdy. Well, this is an advantage of dental porcelain or porcelain veneers. They are strong, they're pretty sturdy, and resilient. They have a pretty natural look, which makes them very desirable. As far as that resilience and strength is concerned, they pretty much don't stain. Now, your dentist might tell you to not eat certain foods, but they're pretty good with staining, and they're pretty good with discoloration. As in, over time, they're a lot more resistant to that color fading away. They do last a long time, from about 10 to 20 years from my research. Although they last a long time, which is great, and because of all these factors I am telling you, they are pricey. Porcelain veneers, from what I see, are very good options, but they may not be the best option if you are on a budget. And they take a little longer to prepare. So let's talk about composite resin. This big old structure here is one of the many things composite resin veneers are made of. It's a combination of stuff like borosilicate glass and a bunch of things. It's a composite of different materials, but that's not what we're really trying to get into. Let's talk about the specifics of what these things are. So these last about 5 to 7 years. These ranges of time can be more or less, it really depends on the situation, but they don't last as long as porcelain veneers. They do have a lower cost, which is a great option if you don't have a bunch of money to shell out on porcelain veneers, but they are more prone to damage, discoloration, and stains. And with these kinds of veneers, the aftercare is very important, and we'll get to that. One piece I did want to mention is that there are different kinds of composite resin veneers. There are direct. Now, what does direct mean? Well, direct means the resin is directly applied. It's directly applied to the teeth, and it can be a same-day procedure. If you are someone that you don't want to wait a long time to get your veneers, you can get them same day. They're a little pricey, but it is an option. Then you have indirect composite resin. This is indirectly applied, as in it's sent to a lab. Once they process you and things like that and get a good mold, they don't do it in-house, they send it out. They are stronger than the direct, but they are pricey. So while composite resin veneers can be a good cost-effective option, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of variables involved in pricing. So let's continue. Let's talk about choosing the right veneers. In doing research for this video, I found out some very interesting things I didn't know, like the importance of facial structure. Facial structure is important because the way your face is shaped will dictate the preferred shape of your veneers. So if you have a heart-shaped face, it seems like you'd want some more rounded veneers. Oval-shaped face, you want more square veneers. A round-shaped face, you maybe want some that are more long and pronounced. If you have a square-shaped face, you'll want something small, round, and less edgy. Where can you get veneers? There are so many places you can get them, like the United States and the UK. You can get them in Turkey. We know Turkey is a huge destination for medical tourism. Hungary, Germany, and many, many more places. And I want to mention here is that if you cheap out, you are risking the health of your teeth. Now, I don't mean that if you want to spend less money, you're getting a more risky procedure, because you have things like composite resin where you can get on a budget and get a very good set of veneers. But I noticed that a lot of people, at least in America, will go to these random countries to really get much cheaper veneers, and it ends up messing up their whole entire teeth. And we might as well go over here to veneers gone wrong. I mentioned before the price. Cheap. If you have less money, that's fine, but you should do your research and get a good dentist that can give you some good veneers for your budget. A lot of people don't do that, and they have a small budget and they're like, I still want veneers, so they'll go somewhere and get them, and then their mouth gets messed up. And this is because you might have a bad dentist. And a lot of these issues are no research. If you're gonna mess around with your body parts, whether it's like a BBL or your teeth, you wanna make sure you're getting the best care possible. And then no knowledge. Again, this is a no research thing. You want to make sure that you have all the information you need. And then another thing is fast. I know this is an American thing, but in America, we want things fast and want things right now. The desire to have the perfect teeth you want as fast as possible can make you prone to not doing research and just not accumulating the knowledge you need to get the best results. And if you do that, you'll end up with teeth like this, or something worse, or something in that range. In this case, this person, I feel so bad for her, went somewhere and they just, in the process of preparing her teeth, shaved way too much enamel, and then she ended up with these pointy teeth that look pretty bad. And this is what happens, one of the many things that can happen if you try to go the cheapest route and don't do your research. Research is huge. This is like the main thing I saw when I was doing my research. All these dentistry websites said, make sure you do the best research, get the best dentist you can, because you don't want to mess around with your teeth. So let's talk about cost. These numbers I'm going to give you are a range. I got them from a variety of websites. You may agree, may disagree. It is what it is. I tried my best to capture the range from websites from Turkey, a bunch of websites from down here in South Florida or California, and a bunch of different places. So, porcelain. Porcelain veneers are more expensive. The minimum I was seeing is about $100 to $130 to $700. I saw some that said about $200, the cheapest. Max is $2,500. Oh, this is cost per tooth, by the way. Average about $1,200 to $1,500. Composite resin. Minimum $100 to $250. Again, these numbers vary. Max about $1,500. Average $600 to $700. If you want veneers, every dentist is different. They'll give you pricing and things like that. But this is kind of the best that I saw as far as the average. As you can see, they cost a lot of money. The good thing is that you're not going to get a veneer for every single tooth. You really want to get the veneers that will cover all the teeth that are shown when you smile. Again, it's still pretty expensive. And now you can see why some people will opt for a much cheaper and risky situation, because they don't have the money to spend on quality veneers. So let's talk preparation, placement, and aftercare. Usually it takes about 2 appointments to get your veneers. Sometimes it takes longer. It depends on your situation, depends on the clinic. There's all sorts of factors, as I mentioned before. So let's talk about the first appointment. Well, in the first appointment, from what I saw in my research, you're going to discuss your goals, expectations, oral habits, medical and dental history with the dentist, because this is all very important. They need to know what's going on. Oral health is very important. How are your teeth and gums? Is there decay? Do you need braces? What's going on? If there are situations going on with your oral health or your medical history that need to be addressed, they have to be addressed before you get veneers. Because again, this is purely aesthetic. You can think of it like weight loss surgery. Oftentimes, if you get weight loss surgery, the doctor is going to need you at a certain weight before they move on to the procedure. Again, it's aesthetic, so it's kind of similar in a way. And they'll also do some x-rays and things like that. Again, they're trying to figure out what's the baseline health. And if everything looks good, then you'll be able to get those things faster. And obviously, if you have damage to your teeth and your gums or other things like that, you got to get that taken care of first. And in some cases, your dentist might be like, all right, you might not want veneers, but we can put some crowns in. Again, if there's too much going on, veneers are not the best option. Let's talk about preparing the teeth. For the most part, you will have a dentist or a technician grind a small amount of enamel. And they grind that from the front and the sides of the teeth. The enamel is this tough material that makes up a lot of the crown. Under this is the dentin and all sorts of different things. I'm not a dentist. I didn't really study this stuff, but this is a good picture. And sometimes you might need some local anesthetic. to help with some pain if that's the situation that's required. A mold is made of the teeth, and you might get temporary veneers to hold you off until you get your real ones. And this can take a few weeks. Something I do want to mention is that if you have composite resin, you might not need any of that. You might not need to get your enamel reduced. You might not need temporary veneers. And you might not need local anesthetic because you don't need to get your enamel ground away. And these are like the same day and things like that. Again, there's all kinds of different variables and options. But for the most part, at least the traditional process, it'll take a couple appointments and they'll grind away that enamel. In that last picture I showed you about the woman who had her teeth that were very sharp looking, that dentist, whoever did it, just did way too much grinding, and it left this poor woman with a horrendous looking set of teeth. As you can see here, there's some really interesting pictures showing some of that process of choosing color and stuff like that. Again, it's purely aesthetic, and so you're gonna want a natural tooth look. I've seen some people that their veneers are way too white, and that's not natural. There is a pearl type of color that normal teeth have, and that's just another one of the many options available. And a good dentist will take all this stuff into account to make sure that you are satisfied. So let's talk about this second appointment. So the temporary veneers are removed, and you have a teeth cleaning and some disinfection. Color and fit can be decided here. Then you have dental cement that's applied to the teeth, however many teeth you're getting done. And then they take a UV light to dry the veneers. So you apply the dental cement, then you apply the veneers, and then you do a little drying process. Beforehand, I talked about the composite resin. So this can be same day, those direct veneers. A little prep. Some people don't want all the prep work, so they opt for a little bit more expensive, but same day procedure. And this is just an example of a quicker application. In the next slide, we'll talk about same day porcelain veneers. So let's continue. And so once all this is done, it's time for the aftercare. So once you get your veneers, the aftercare is very, very important. You're going to want to get consistent cleaning done with your dentist. So every dentist is different, but for the most part, I saw a handful of things that one should avoid when you have veneers. You're going to want to avoid hard and chewy foods, certain foods and drinks, and this can include red wine, beets, and other things, certain teas and coffee. As I mentioned, this is all dependent upon the person. It's dependent upon the dentist, the kinds of veneers you get, tobacco and sugar. You do not want to use DIY methods to clean your teeth or maybe fix a veneer if it's chipped, and you don't want to use whitening agents. If something goes wrong, you need to talk to your dentist because you don't want to try to fix it yourself. You do not have that skill set. So I want to talk about the same day veneers, but the porcelain veneers. This is interesting because not every dentist office or lab has this. This is made with a really interesting 3D technology. Very, very expensive. So they take a block of porcelain, from what I saw, and they custom make it. They custom make your veneers in-house with their lab. So these places will have their own lab, and you can get everything done in your first visit. Although another factor is your health, your tooth health, gum health. If all that is good and you don't need anything treated, This can be an option, but this is much, much more expensive because you have this office that's using this very expensive technology, so they're going to charge you a lot because you can't really get this at every single office. And when you do research, the offices that do have this technology will proudly put it on the forefront because it's not very common. So let's talk about the pros and the cons. Well, the pros, you have a nice choice of materials. It can give you this nice, beautiful, natural-looking smile. So let's zoom in here to show you guys what I mean. So I don't even need to point this out. You can pause and see the differences, but I'll point out a few things. This person has some gaps that have clearly been taken care of with these veneers. That they might not have been satisfied with the way their teeth are shaped. As you can see, the way they're shaped, they're very different now with these veneers. The teeth are a lot whiter. This person was probably wanting whiter teeth. In my opinion, they're a little too white, but I'm not the patient nor the dentist. Let me take all this away, and you guys can just clearly see the differences. There's a huge, huge difference in this person's smile. It's more full. It's aesthetically pleasing. This is the reason why people get veneers. They want a more beautiful smile, and this is what has taken place here. This person seems like they spent some good money. Maybe, I don't know their situation, but their teeth look better to them. So they can be stain resistant. And I'm going to put a little star here because it depends on the veneers you get. They can be quick. Another star because, again, it depends. If you spend the right money, you can get that same day, or you can reduce the amount of time between your appointment and getting your actual veneers. They're versatile. What I mean by this is that there's so many options with shape, with color. There's a lot of variables, and you can find something that works best for you. They are, in a lot of cases, affordable. But some are more expensive than others, and you don't really want to cheap out on your veneers. They can require very little prep work. Another star because it depends on your situation. But for the most part, you can get them with very little prep. They can be long-lasting. Now, we did talk about that some last longer than others, but in the perfect scenario, they are very long-lasting and strong. Some are stronger than others, but for the most part, if you spend good money, they will be sturdy. What about the cons? It's permanent. I don't think I mentioned this, at least directly. Veneers are permanent for the most part. There are some that are reversible, removable. For the most part, it's a permanent procedure. Some people don't like that it might make their teeth sensitive because of the enamel removal. There is risk of damage depending on the situation. They can have a shorter lifespan if you have, that composite resin, things like that. Stains, if you have veneers that are more likely to stain, they can be expensive, and they're really not for everyone. And as I mentioned before, you do not want to cheap out on your veneers because you'll end up having a mouth that looks like Baby Shark, and none of us want that, and I know you don't want that. One other thing I've seen on social media, there are these people that call themselves veneer techs. I don't know a lot about dentistry, but I know this is not really a thing from what I see. There are a lot of people that I think want to feel like they're doing something important, but they really cut corners and kind of make stuff up. And this seems to be what this is. If anyone has any more information, please comment about it. But you need to go to a dentist, a real deal dentist, do your research, and don't try to skimp out because, again, you don't want the Baby Shark and you don't want the horse teeth. I've seen this on social media. Unfortunately, some people just don't do good research and they don't get a good situation and they end up having teeth that look way too big for their mouths. In my opinion, it seems like it's just a lack of research and a lack of due diligence. But I think in some cases you could just have a bad dentist. A lot of different factors. So anyway, let's go through the summary and review what we learned. So we talked about veneers being thin coverings placed over your teeth that are there for purely aesthetic reasons. You got porcelain veneers, composite resin veneers. The difference in what you choose really depends on the time you want to spend, the money, the dentist you go to. And then we talked briefly about some no prep veneers like lumineers and things like that. Then we talked about porcelain versus composite resin veneers. Porcelain being stronger, they're more sturdy, 10 to 20 year lifespan, but they're more expensive. Then we talked about composite resin veneers. Usually cheaper, 5 to 7 year lifespan. They are prone to damage, discoloration, staining. Then you have direct veneers and indirect veneers. Direct being a direct application. You can usually get it faster. Indirect, meaning it's a little stronger, but a little bit more expensive. And there's a lot of options. We then talked about how important the facial structure is when choosing your veneers. We talked about the many different places you can get veneers. We covered the cost. Veneers can be pretty expensive, and per tooth, depending on your situation, it might run you a pretty penny. But we did talk about veneers gone wrong. You gotta do your due diligence. You have to do good research because you wanna make sure your teeth look as best as they can look. We talked about the first appointment, discussion with the doctor about goals, expectations, covering oral health being very important when it comes to getting veneers. We talked about the preparation of the teeth, grinding a small amount of enamel from the fronts and sides of your teeth, and all the other pieces that go into getting veneers. We then went into the second appointment. When you get those temporary veneers taken off, you get them applied, and then you got to take care of them. You should avoid things like foods that can stain your teeth or hard or chewy foods. Avoid DIY methods for cleaning and trying to take care of your teeth. And then we talked about same-day porcelain veneers being pretty expensive. You can get them at certain dentist clinics with certain kinds of machinery and technology that can give you a great looking smile and a great set of teeth fairly quickly compared to the traditional path. We then closed out with the pros and cons of veneers. Stain resistant, they're versatile, they can be affordable, but they can be permanent. Some people might not want that permanent alteration. Some can have a shorter lifespan, they can be pricey. They're not for everyone. And if you don't do your due diligence and you don't do your good research, you can end up with pretty terrible looking teeth. So that's all I got. I hope you guys learned a lot. This was one of the more fun videos for me to research. It is a re-release. I made this video like a year ago, but I wanted to do it again under this new format. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you at least took one new thing away from this video. So as always, thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends, and I'll be back soon with another video.